What's up? My name is Brian and welcome back to another episode of the Book Report, my supposed to be weekly check-in where I let you all know what I've been reading, what books I've gotten, all that kind of fun stuff. But it's been a while. It's been 3-ish weeks or so, I think, since I've done a book report video and update video. Haven't been in a reading slump, but I haven't been reading very much. I've just been busy doing other things. But I'm starting to get back into the rhythm of reading, so it's time to update. I'll let you all know what has been going on. So got a few things to talk about since it's been a while today. What I read in September, which wasn't a ton. What I've been currently reading, and I've got some book pickups. Before we get into all that, I want to mention really quick, because if not, I'm going to forget. I've been doing my 31 Days of Horror book recommendations, shorts, one video every day for the month of October, recommending a different scary, spooky book. So that series has been going on. I've got all the videos filmed already. They're all uploaded, scheduled for one each day. We're on day, what is today? We're on day 18 today. So that came out today, which I think was Between Two Fires, which we'll be talking about here in a little bit. But if you're interested, check that out. I'll link the series up here in the corner. I think that's been a lot of fun to do that, recommending 31 different books throughout the month of October. So that's been going on. So let's dive into what I read in September, which, like I said, wasn't a lot. It was only 2 books. I finished one like the very beginning of October, but can't count that towards September since I read it in October. So what did I read in September? Again, wasn't much, but I read Educated by Tara Westover. This is a memoir. I put up a little short, rapid review for this earlier, a couple weeks ago, but the long and short of it, I love this book. This book was awesome. It's the first memoir I've ever read. I gave it 5 stars. It's kind of just the struggles of Tara and what she went through growing up. A very strict familial structure where they were Mormon. Her parents were very strictly Mormon, especially her dad, and they didn't really allow their kids to have any sort of formal education. They didn't go to public school. Some of the older children, some of her brothers and sisters did. They pulled them out. So they were kind of homeschooled, but not really homeschooled. So they really didn't have any sort of education, whatsoever. And it wasn't a great home environment either. The dad was kind of schizophrenic, bipolar, which she didn't know this until later on. She went to school and stuff. But yeah, this is just a story of struggle, of perseverance. It's inspiring, it's hopeful, but it was also a very frustrating read. Based on all the things that happened to Tara and to her siblings at the hands of mainly at her father, and one of her older brothers was just a terrible, terrible person. I think he had his own issues, but he took it out on Tara and the siblings. Really frustrating to read that. It's easy for me to say that as a bystander reading this. Why don't you just leave the situation, get out of it? She would leave and kept coming back and leaving, kept coming back. And that was really frustrating. And it's easy for me to say that. But for her, that's her family, that's her life, what she's grown up knowing. So I'm sure it's a lot harder to kind of break that cycle and get away from that, as it is me imagining, oh, let's just leave and be done with it. It's not as easy as I think it is. But yeah, this was excellent. If you are interested in memoirs, like I said, this is the first one I've ever read. Highly, highly recommend it. It was an amazing read. Like I said, hopeful, inspiring, just, an awesome, awesome read. This was Educated by Tara Westover. So I read that in September, and then I also finished up on audiobook listening to finally The Two Towers by Tolkien. Finally finished that up. I won't speak too much about it. Everyone knows what's going on there. But on audiobook, like I said, I've been listening to it, and it's narrated by Andy Serkis. He does a phenomenal job, especially with Two Towers, because Golem finally gets into the action, and listening to him narrate that like he did in the movies was just a treat. But yeah, I've enjoyed that. I've been enjoying them. It's hard to compare them to the movies, but I think it's on par with the movie as far as my enjoyment level. I really enjoyed it. And I'm listening to Return of the King now. It's been a while since I've listened to it, but I'm like 6 or 7 hours into that one. Want to finish up the whole trilogy by the end of the year. I've listened to the first 2 books. Want to finish up the 3rd one by the end of the year. But I also finished up, like I said, listening to The Two Towers on audiobook back in September. So those are the 2 things I did in September. What have I been reading? What have I finished reading so far? So I finished this one up at the beginning of October. I mentioned it earlier, put up a short for today recommending it for 31 Days of Horror. This is Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman. I've got a lot of his books, actually. I've got, I know there's a vampire novel, a werewolf novel, like a car novel. It's called like The Suicide Motor Squad. I've got two of his other fantasy books and this one, but this is the first one I've ever read from him, and I really, really enjoyed it. On the cover, it says it's an epic tale of medieval horror, which I do agree with that, but I feel like it's more fantasy with horror elements to it at times than just a straight up horror novel. It's set in like France during the 1300s. The Black Plague, the bubonic plague, is going on, and we are following a knight who's kind of fallen from grace. He did some things that, well, he did some things. He was really kind of kicked out, but he did some things he shouldn't have done as a knight, and he's kind of like a vagabond now, a brigand, kind of robbing people and stuff like that. He comes across this young girl. He saves her. This young girl, she's not really all that she seems on the surface. She sees these visions from angels. Sometimes she is not necessarily possessed, but they kind of take over and speak through her or kind of act little miracles through her. And she kind of has this destiny. She is been told that she needs to go visit the city where the Pope lives. She doesn't really know why, but that's kind of the journey that she's set upon. So it's her and this knight following along with her, kind of protecting her as this fatherly figure. And you know, there's warfare, there's famine, and all that kind of stuff going on during the Black Plague. Get my words out. But yeah, it's cool. It's got different demonic kind of creatures they fight and stuff, and the whole backdrop is very religious horror. There is, you know, this war in heaven. Angels and demons are fighting, and in the book, God has kind of turned a blind eye on mankind, and that has allowed the demons and devils to kind of have their way, run amok with war, pestilence, plague, famine, you know, all that kind of stuff that they are inflicting on mankind. They're kind of taking over different parts of the world, different factions and stuff like that. And it's kind of this little girl's quest to kind of put a stop to that as best she can. And the third act, it really goes for that big kind of biblical big battle in the sky. And I think he nailed it. I'm glad he went for it. I think he nailed it there in the third act. And also, I really liked the ending. The ending was kind of bittersweet. I really enjoyed the ending. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. If you are into fantasy and want a little bit more horror in your fantasy, I think this would be a great book to pick up. But it's also kind of a breath of fresh air. If you really like horror, this is a bit different than your typical average horror book. And it was a lot of fun. Really well written, cool characters, cool monsters, and battle scenes and stuff like that. Really enjoyed it, and looking forward to definitely reading more from Christopher Buehlman. This was Between Two Fires, again, by Christopher Buehlman. So that's what I most recently read. I'll talk about what I'm currently reading here in a minute, but I've got some book pickups I want to talk about. So I think it was the first full week in October, from like the 5th to the 11th or something like that. It was Banned Books Week. And the theme this year, I'm not going to quote it exactly, but it was something like banning books is so 1984, or censorship is so 1984, something like that. That was kind of the theme for Banned Books Week this year. And so I went out and picked up 1984 by George Orwell. I've never read this before. I've never read Animal Farm, never read anything. I was a slacker in school. I'm sure we were assigned this or Animal Farm or something in school. I was really bad about doing homework and reading books in school. Didn't like it. Didn't like reading at that time in middle school and high school. Could have cared less about reading books. But it was on theme. It's a banned book, so thought this was a perfect opportunity to pick this one up. This is the authorized edition by the Orwell estate, the 75th anniversary. I think everybody knows kind of what this is, this dystopian future. Government's very overbearing, taking away your rights and your freedoms of speech and all that kind of stuff. Sounds kind of very familiar to maybe what's going on today in America in a very scary scenario like that. But yeah, Big Brother, all around, always watching. It's got the eye on there, always watching. But yeah, I've never read this one before. I want to read it. It's a classic. I can't remember if I've seen the movie or not. I don't know. But my wife remembered reading this one. She really enjoyed it. She said it was really good. Yeah. So I'm excited for this one. War is Peace, Freedom is Slavery, and Big Brother is always watching. So I thought this was appropriate based on the theme for Banned Book Week to pick this one up. This is 1984 by George Orwell. I want to get to this one sooner rather than later. I might try to squeeze it in before the end of the year. We'll see, but I'm excited to get this one sometime really soon. So I picked up that one, and then I also picked up Carl's Doomsday Scenario by Matt Dinniman. This is book 2. Yeah, book 2 in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I read the first book in September, I think it was, and just had an absolute, August, because I just talked about what I read in September. Read it in August and had an absolute blast with that book. I think there are 6 or 7 books in this series so far. This is book 2. It's a little bit shorter than book 1. It's only like 350 pages or so, 360. But like I said, had an absolute blast with book 1. Super fun fantasy series. It's lit RPG is the genre, which I had never really heard of before until I heard people talking about that one. But it's got lots of, if you like Dungeons and Dragons, I think you're going to love these books. It's got like stats and achievements and the loot that they get all in here. It's a blast. I can't wait to continue on with the series. I had to pick this one up. Just a lot of fun. Super fun and entertaining. This is Carl's Doomsday Scenario by Matt Dinniman, book number 2 in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. Very much looking forward to reading that one. I would also like to get to that one before the end of the year. Maybe save that one for December. Entertaining Christmas read for that one. So I went and picked those 2 up. And I also got 2 books in the mail. I've been very lucky and fortunate to be receiving a couple books from Tor, which I'm very much appreciative of. So I've got 2 here. First one is The Works of Vermin by Hiron Ennis. I did look up their name, make sure I was saying it correctly. And from the interviews, I believe that's how you say it. Hiron Ennis, The Works of Vermin. They've got another book called Leech, which I think was more horror. I've heard really good things about that one. But this is more kind of fantasy, maybe with some horror mixed in. It's kind of in this city in this giant kind of ancient log, and there are these giant vermin kind of hunters that are going on. Violence in the streets, traitors at the opera, monsters in the walls. It's a beautiful day in Tilliard. I think our main character is like an exterminator, and they have to go kill this almost like dragon-sized, like giant centipede that's down at the bottom of the city. And I think there's like poison or something that's killing people in the city. I can't remember for sure, but it sounded really cool. I've got a unboxing video, book mail opening video, where I think I talk more about it better there. But this sounds really cool. I hadn't heard of this author before, but I have heard Leech was pretty good, their other book. So yeah, this one sounds cool. This is really exciting sounding. Another one I'd like to get to before the end of the year. I'm probably not going to get to all these books before the end of the year, but I really dig this cover too. Yeah, this one's cool. This is, what is this one? The Works of Vermin by Hiron Ennis. Kind of a fantasy / horror book, it seems like. And then the other one from Tor that I received the other day, this is called This Gilded Abyss by Rebecca Thorne. This one was pitched as like zombies meets BioShock. If you remember the video game BioShock, took place in like the underwater city. It also says it was like Arcane meets Titanic. I think Arcane is a anime, I think. And then Titanic, other underwater stuff. But this one is, we have 2 kind of X's. They've broken up. I think one is like the queen or the princess or the ruler of the city. The other one is like a warrior, I believe. They have to get back together because there is this weird, I think it's a virus that's causing people to, I don't think it's necessarily zombies. It seems more like 28 Days Later, where they just kind of go crazy and mad when they get infected. I think that's kind of what's going on. But people are being brutally murdered by people infected with this disease. And it looks like it all takes place in either a submersible or in this underwater city. So that sounds really cool. I think this is more kind of horror romance, which I don't really tend to read romances very often at all. Really, that's just not my thing. But if it's mainly horror sprinkled with some romance, I think it'll be okay. So I'm going to give this one a shot. This one sounds pretty cool. There's a number 1 on here, so I think this might be book 1 of a trilogy or possibly a series. I think it was also originally self-published, and it's now being re-released through Tor because I've seen a different cover for it. online. This one sounds pretty cool, pretty interesting. I'm going to give it a shot, even though it is billed as maybe a little romance heavy, but we'll see. This is called This Gilded Abyss by Rebecca Thorne. Again, thanks to Tor for sending these two books along my way. Very much appreciative of that. I think I've got a third one on the way. I think it's a novella. So maybe that will be coming in soon. We shall see. So what am I currently reading? I'm currently reading this 15,000 page book. Finally getting to The Stand by Stephen King. This is the complete and uncut version, and that's a heavy book. So I had started this before, like a year or two ago, and I got to like 400-ish pages into it, set it aside because I was reading other books. I got sidetracked with those stuff and never went back to it. I was enjoying it. It wasn't that I wasn't liking it or anything. There was just too many books. I was reading stuff for paper cuts and other things like that, and I just didn't get back to it. So I started it over from the beginning, and I'm now about the same place as it was before, 452 pages into it. I'm on book 2 of it so far, and I'm really enjoying it. I don't know where it is going to rank once I finish in my favorite Stephen King books, but it is really good so far. Following a multitude of different characters, Larry Underwood, Steve Redmond, Franny Goldsmith, Nick is his name, the deaf mute kid. I think his name is Nick. I can't remember right now, but I'm enjoying all the characters. I like this. I read Swan Song by Robert McCammon a year or two ago, and they're both apocalyptic novels, but it's drastically different. And that one, it was just, complete devastation. It was nuclear warfare, explosions, cities are destroyed, people are dying from the radiation and fallout and stuff like that. And this is almost like, this is a Captain Trips. It's a flu virus, very reminiscent of, COVID, eerily reminiscent of that, kind of what happened a little bit. But this is almost super quiet, where the other one I felt like it was all flames and destruction and stuff. This one's just kind of quiet, where they're walking around. Everyone, the survivors are left. Everyone's dead. Especially in New York City with Larry Underwood. He was walking through New York City and just came across just barely, a couple people, which is just super creepy. I think, I don't know. It very much lends to the atmosphere of the horror, just basically being, alone. But nothing has been really destroyed. Everything just, has been abandoned. It's just like everyone disappeared because they've all died from this flu virus. But I'm enjoying it so far. What is his name? The Man in Black, Randall Flagg. I'm enjoying him as a villain so far. I know he appears in so much other stuff, the Dark Tower series and everything like that. Basically, if you read a Stephen King book and someone's initials are RF, it's Randall Flagg. But yeah, this is great so far. I don't know how long this is going to take me. I'm about 40% through, I think. It's 1,153 pages this edition, 452 pages into it. So it's going to be a little while, but I'm enjoying my journey so far. Finally reading The Stand by Stephen King. So we'll see how long that one takes me. Probably the rest of October, if I'm going to be honest. I might try to squeeze in a small novella or two while I'm reading this one, just to break it up some. And it doesn't take me, I don't have one book that I've read the whole entire month. Not that that really matters anyway, but whatever. But I think that's it. It's been a while since we've spoken, but I think that is it. So again, if you haven't already, check out the 31 Days of Horror book recommendations playlist. Again, I'll link it up here. It's been a blast doing those, recommending 31 different horror books, also by 31 different authors. So I'm not, there's not 10 Stephen King books on there. There's 31 different authors, 31 different books. It's been a blast to curate that. Hope you're watching it, enjoying it, and hopefully it gives you, a spooky book to read during this October month. If you didn't have one, if you needed any recommendations, I hope it has helped you out some. But anyway, I'm starting to ramble, so we're going to wrap this up. That's all I've got for you guys today. So appreciate you hanging out, spending your time with me. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.